and depending on what they come back with, we loop round on that circle again, and we do more research, and we say, okay, we've missed a bit, we've not understood this, and we'll come up with new ideas, and we'll change them, and we'll make new prototypes, and we'll keep looping around that until we're happy that we've reached a decent outcome. At which point I pass over to our graphic designer, who takes these kind of mock-ups, these designs, these ideas, you know, brands them, makes them look nice, makes everything presentable to the users. And again, we need feedback, so if we can show them at that point, great, we will. If not, then as it goes out, we still get feedback. We will still contact the customers and find out what worked, what didn't, what needs changing, you know, what can we tweak in the next release to make this better for you. So that's the general process we came up with. As I say, it's loose, it's fast-flowing, it changes a little bit depending on what we're working with, but having a process in place gives us kind of checkpoints to say, okay, yes, we've spoken to some customers, we've done some research, we've got some ideas, and we can kind of check it off as we go. So, similar to what Russell went through in one of his slides, communication is important. So, we get information fed into us from the product managers, the product owners. They give us an idea of the themes that we're working towards. We get feedback from sales and marketing, people saying, you know, we tried to sell this and this is missing, you know, we need this isn't going to work for this customer because they have this scenario. We speak to the customers directly, and we speak to the market directly. So all of that feeds into everything we do. And then obviously everything we do, we need to feed out to the business in general, to let people know what's going on, what we're working on, what's coming up, to the engineers to make sure they understand the designs that we've made, that they haven't got questions, that they know the flow, they know what's meant to happen, and back to the product owners and the product managers in terms of, you know, the research, the things we found. You know, yes, this is our theme, but actually we've done this research and this other thing may be better, may be more suited, may work better for more customers. So communication is probably key in every role in business, but particularly user experience. So our job is all about understanding the users, and there's a lot to understand. So it's important we know what their goals are, we know what they're trying to achieve, what their end goal is meant to be for them, and why they're doing that. What processes they're following, what procedures, what restrictions they have in their company. You know, are they just doing this job to get it out of the way, or do they want to save money? Do they want to save time? You know, what is it that they want from this? And something I'll touch on briefly is on the other side of things. So once we've released software and we've got it out, we want the feedback as to how it's worked. So mental models is a term. I have no idea how familiar people are with this, but it's basically a user's understanding of how something works. Rightly or wrongly, it may be completely inaccurate. If someone believes that when they click on this button, this thing should happen, then when that doesn't happen, they're going to be confused, they're going to be frustrated. So understanding how people believe things should work is a very useful thing to know. And alongside that, their expectations, you know. What are they expecting from this product? Have we missed a whole section here? Are they expecting, I don't know, yeah, what are they expecting basically is very important. And on both the research and the feedback side, the whys are really important. So root cause analysis style, you know, why are they trying to achieve that thing? Why do they need to do it now? Why do they need to do it in this way? You know, just keep asking those questions. Why have they hit a problem in the software? You know, why did they think that button would do that thing? Where were they misled? So all of that is important to understand to really be effective in your role. So, research. Where do we start? It's a huge area. I could probably do a whole hour's session just on research. So, a good place to start is surveys. Surveys are great for statistics, for getting an understanding of areas of priority, things to dig deeper into. So they can help find patterns in ways of working, common processes, common themes, and in particular for us, surveys are a great way of speaking to those people who are not local to you. So I can go down our local city centre and speak to the store managers there. That may be very different to, you know, a massive shopping centre in Manchester or a shopping centre in America. You know, I can't get to all these places. So surveys allow us to sort of get a broader range of knowledge. What they don't do is answer the whys though. So they give you statistics, they say, you know, yes, this thing is very important to people, or no, it isn't, loads of people do this, or they don't, but they don't tell you why they do it. So surveys alone are not enough, in my opinion. And that's where speaking to the people comes in. So again, I mentioned already, I spend a lot of my time walking around our local centre, speaking to store managers, speaking to the staff, and finding out how they really work, you know, and not just in terms of processes, but in terms of distractions, you know. Sure, this may be the process they follow, but it might take them 3 days instead of half an hour because they're doing all these other things alongside, and they might forget things, and they might, you know, get things confused, and all of that is important. And how they address their problems at the moment. So what tools do they use? Again, do they have restrictions? Are all their computers, you know, XP and don't run anything? You know, all this is important to understand. And you can really get the whys from speaking to people in person. And you'd be surprised how willing people are to open up. So when I first started going out, I kind of thought, you know, I'm going to struggle to get anyone to speak to me. They don't care about our software, you know, and they don't. They have no interest. They're not our customers. They're just generic store managers. But they do care about their jobs. And when you start getting someone talking about things that they know about, that they enjoy, they open up to all sorts of things. Probably some things that they shouldn't be telling me. But they're quite happy to talk. So again, don't be afraid to just go and speak to people. So once you've got all this research, you've got your surveys, you've spoken to people, you've probably got notes in all kinds of places, you need a way of presenting that back to the team. Because it's important that everyone understands this. You know, it's all well and good that I might have a great understanding of our users, but if no one else does, they don't understand why we're developing things in certain ways, or what we're doing, or what we're trying to achieve. So one very common and quite good way of sharing that back are personas. So this is where you take all that research and you kind of group it and you create these fictional people that represent a group of users. And it should be based on real data. It shouldn't be based on assumptions. And if you don't know things, it's important to make that clear, because people will base decisions on what you've presented. So if you're a bit unsure, you know, you might have a feel for something, but if you don't know, make sure people know that you don't know. So take the real data you've got, and these don't have to be really detailed, but they have to be focused on the behaviours of these people, you know. What we're not interested in is Joe Bloggs spends all week down the pub, he loves playing Xbox, you know, we don't care about that. We want to know what he does for his job, how he does it, what challenges he hits. And then these can be used later down the line when we're making decisions on how to design something. We can go back and say, well, how would Joe Bloggs do this, you know? We've got all this information about him. If he was in this situation, what would he need to do? What would he need in front of him? And again, make sure the whole team has access to these. Everyone needs visibility. So another area of research is competitors. You need to understand what you're up against and how other companies have solved the same problems. Because you're not going to be the only one out there developing whatever it is you're developing. Other people have done this research already. They've hit these challenges. So getting an understanding of what they've done to try and solve the problems and why they've done that, how that fits with the market they're trying to target, and what differences there is between what they're doing and who they're targeting compared to you. Because it's not always a straight fit, you know. Just because these companies have done it in this way doesn't mean there's not a better way or a different way. But getting an understanding of that and how they've come to that conclusion, that is very useful. And learning what doesn't work for them as well. So again, you can go off, you can kind of find reviews of software and feedback from other people who have used it, and you can find out what they've got wrong. And you can take that information and you can use that to adjust your own products to make something better, hopefully. that solves these problems that they haven't managed to hit. So yeah, competitor research, very, very important. I feel like I'm rushing through this quite quick, so if there's any questions at any point, stick your hands up. I don't know if anyone's got any questions so far. No, lots of blank faces. I'll carry on then. So another area of research is existing conventions and standards. So I guess this comes into play more for software development than other areas, but there are standards out there. There are conventions, there are ways that people expect things to work. And these standards, they're there for a reason, you know. This isn't just some random person decided this was the best way. They've come about for certain reasons, because people have found that easiest. And they build a level of expectation in people's heads. So if the standard is that something behaves in a particular way, if you do it differently, you need to understand the response you're going to get to that. You know, if you're not following an existing convention or an existing standard, then you have to understand the risk of what people may be expecting compared to what you're delivering. And a great quote from Steve Krug, I don't know if anyone's heard of him, he writes a lot of UX related books. If you're not going to use an existing web convention, you need to make sure that what you're replacing it with is either so clear and self-explanatory that there's no learning curve, so it's as good as a convention, or it has so much value that it's worth the learning. Otherwise, people just won't change. People won't bother learning it. So, once you've got all your research, you've investigated all these areas, it's time to start coming up with some ideas. So, I would always recommend starting rough, pen and paper, whiteboards, anything that, you know, scribbly notes, just get all your ideas out of your head. You need to make sure you keep the bigger picture in mind, and we advise not to get the graphic designer involved too early, because they will get very stuck into the details of the UI. They may forget that bigger picture, and they may not think the whole thing through. So it's important to understand the whole flow of how you want things to work before you start colouring buttons in and shading things here and there. Otherwise you're going to get so lost in your page that you're not going to see the whole picture, and you're probably going to miss things. And don't work in isolation. As much as it's nice to tuck yourself away in a corner and think, oh, I'll just crack on with this, I'll just get this done out the way, you need other people's involvement. Because again, you're not designing for yourself, and it's very important to remember that. You're designing for other people. And what you in your head might think is a great idea, someone else may come along and say, well, why are you doing it like that? That doesn't make any sense to me. You know, the more people you can have involved in this, whether it's your product owners, product managers, developers, anyone from the business, it's important that people have visibility, so they have the opportunity to jump in and say, hang on a minute, why are you doing it that way? Have you thought about these other things? So start rough, scribble notes down, get as many as you can out on paper. And once you've got a whole bunch of ideas, it may inspire further ideas. Maybe you can combine them, you can tweak them, you can come up with a selection that you think is best from that. But yeah, I'd always recommend starting with lots rather than just picking one and rolling with it. It gives you the best way, the best kind of creative mind to come up with new ideas. And on that note, I love this little cartoon. So again, you're not designing for yourself. You need to remember the goals, the things that people actually need, that they're trying to achieve. Don't forget about the problem you're trying to solve. Don't get carried away and come up with this beautiful page that doesn't really do anything. So, one of the ways that I personally enjoy and that we use in our company to generate ideas is something that we call UX design sessions. I have no idea if that's an official name or if we made that up. And basically what we do is we gather a selection of people from all over the company, usually sort of 5, 6, 7, not too many because it becomes unmanageable. And these can be from any department, you know, they can be engineers, they can be from marketing, from sales, from support, anywhere. And we stick them in a room and we give them some big bits of paper and some felt tip pens, and we basically say, this is the problem we're trying to solve. You've got 10 minutes, throw out any ideas you've got on how we can solve that. And what that gives you is all kinds of different viewpoints on the same problem. So quite often the things people come up with are very different ways of tackling that same problem. And once everyone's stuck their ideas down, we stick them up on the wall, and we give everyone a bunch of post-it notes, and we get them to comment on what they like on any of these ideas. We tend to stick for the good comments as opposed to the negative, mainly because from my experience, the negative comments tend not to be very constructive. You know, it's not very helpful to just have loads of post-its saying, I don't like this. It doesn't tell us why, it doesn't tell us what the problem is, it doesn't tell us why that won't work for the customers you know. Whereas the good comments, you know, you tend to see themes, you tend to see, oh, this works really well, I love this concept, this would be really easy to use. Things like that come out of it. And people from the business love it. They get an opportunity to sit down for an hour with some felt tip pens and draw pictures. So getting volunteers isn't usually too hard. We tend to restrict it to 10 or 15 minutes because that forces people to focus on the important bits. So again, it stops people sitting there for half hour colouring a button in because they're going to run out of time to get the important bits down. So by restricting the time on that, it forces them to start with the important bits that they care the most about and kind of build out from that. And that's been quite effective in these sessions, I think. If you give people too long, they tend to achieve less. So, feedback at every opportunity is very important. Again, it's not about working in isolation. It's all about the feedback, the iteration, the tweaking. Don't ever expect to get it right first time. No matter how long you've been in the industry, how much you've been doing this, it's probably not going to happen. You know, there's so many people out there and so much to understand that if you expect to get it wrong, it makes you less attached to these things that you're creating. You don't feel as offended when someone comes in and says, oh, that's never going to work, or we should scrap that and do something different. You know, which is another reason why I like to come up with lots of designs to start with. Again, getting too attached to something kind of blindsides you to all the problems with it and all the other ways of doing something. So lots of feedback, lots of iteration the whole way through the process, you know. Take your designs out, find out what people think, you know, show people, get feedback at every possible opportunity. And that's externally and internally as well. So again, I mean, our company's been going for 25 years. We've got people who have been with the company over 20 years. They've got quite a lot of knowledge, you know, and sure, they may not be able to sit down and come up with a perfect solution, but they could definitely tell you where you're going wrong or what you've missed or what's not going to work. So make the most of that knowledge that you've got around you. And make sure that that feedback you get is actually fed back into the design process. Don't share your designs and everyone says, oh, this is great, this is not right, you know, you need to change that, and then go with it anyway. Make sure you make those changes, that you feed all that information back into the whole process. And that means feeding it back into the product owners and product managers as well, so they understand, the engineers, so they understand why you've changed these things and what you've learned in the process. So again, another way we do that at our company, we have a wall which is right next to the lunch area. We literally just stick up our designs next to them, we stick a bunch of post-it notes and a pen, and we tell people to just add comments. Just as you're walking past, if you think of something, if you like something, if you don't, just stick a comment up against it. And that's another means of gathering feedback. It means you don't have to sort of have meetings, you don't have to pull people away from their work, but you can still get their feedback. And another more recent way that we found of doing a similar thing is we've just started using InVision, which is an online tool that allows you to upload sort of images, designs, videos, whatever it is, and anyone can come along, and as long as they've got the URL, they can add comments. They can put little markers on your images even to say this comment is relating to this bit in particular, and they don't need a login, which is kind of useful because we've got so many tools in our company now, so many different logins, that convincing people to take on another tool and remember to log in and use it can be tricky. So personally, InVision seems like a really great tool for this kind of collaboration and sharing your information, sharing your designs. And back to the obvious one is literally going into stores. Show, you know, for us, we target retail. I'll take my designs into a store and I'll show them and say, what do you think of this? You know, would it work? Would it not work? And there's probably more ways of doing this as well. These are the ones we use. So again, we're back to the starting pen and paper. So again, we tend to do brainstorming, we work on whiteboards, we come up with a number of ideas, then we start sketching them up a bit and sort of tweaking them here and there. From that, we can produce sort of wireframes, basic, you know, there's no detail, but we know that the window's going to be here, there's going to be some buttons over here, there's going to be some menu options. And then we can start filling in the detail, you know, really working out exactly how it's going to look. And then if you have the capability to do working prototypes, they are a great tool. They do take a lot of resource. You know, you do need to invest time. If you have that time, it's a great way of getting that feedback, you know, not only on how it looks and feels, but the flow of the software, you know, making sure that people can get from A to B, that they can see everything they need. And once we've got past the prototypes, then we pass it to the developers and they start working on building that product in an alpha environment, so the customers can't see it yet. So again, every step of the way we try and get feedback, we try and iterate and tweak and change. And it's another reason that you don't want to rush straight into those last steps, because those last steps, they take longer, they involve more investment. So, you know, if you spend ages making this beautiful working prototype and you realise your research is wrong or you've not quite understood, again, you've wasted a whole load of time. So you don't want to pump too much investment in until you've got a reasonable idea of what it is you're working towards. So another bit of testing we do is usability testing. So this, for us, came into play more when we started building a new product, whole new product from scratch. And at each stage along the way, what we try to do is bring people into the office, real store managers who have done this before, stick them in front of our software, and give them a number of tasks. So you don't want to just let them loose clicking around. You know, they need to have a goal, a realistic goal that they would be working towards in real life, and see if they can manage it. See where they get stuck, see where they're confused, they're not sure, and get them to speak out loud whilst you're doing it. So you can understand their thought process, why they're looking over here for something that you've stuck down in a different corner, and what they're looking for and what they think is going to happen when they press certain buttons or when they do certain actions. And when we do it, we record the screen so we can show developers later on and say, well, look, they clearly don't know how to use this. We record their face, just sort of a little box in the corner like you see in a lot of gaming videos. And that's mainly for the reactions. So, you know, you might have a mouse hovering around on the screen. It doesn't tell you much, but that person who's scratching their head thinking, oh, I don't know what to do, that kind of emphasizes the fact that they're stuck. And we record the conversation. So again, you get that verbal feedback from them. And that means that when we find problems, we can take these recording backs again to product owners, product managers, engineers, and say, well look, there's clearly a problem here, you know, we need to change this, we need to find a new way of solving this problem. So usability testing is a great tool for uncovering bits where you've either missed stuff or it's not intuitive or it just doesn't flow as well as you think. Again, it does involve a bit of time, a bit of resource, you know, you do have to track down people who are willing. We found an offer of £50 in cash helped encourage people to come in. But you do want to vet them, you do want to make sure this is someone who's actually going to try and who actually knows that area, you know. I see a lot of stuff online about how, you know, for this sort of thing, just wander out into the street and grab the first person you can find. For us, that doesn't work because it's a specialist area. You know, we need retail managers, we need store managers, particularly who schedule staff, which isn't even all of the store managers. So that does make this tricky, but it's very valuable when we manage it. So again, this is just a photo from a usability testing session that we did. This one was on mobile. So on mobile, again, it's a little trickier than on desktop. I think this one was purchased. I have since built my own gadget that allows us to record the screen. I made that out of, I believe it was a clip-on light for like a Kindle or a book that you can clip onto the top of the phone. It folds round, and then on the top we stuck on a little webcam and just cabled that back, and you can attach that to the phone, and as people are using it, it just allows you to not only record the screen, but record their interactions with the screen. So you see where they're tapping on things that don't do anything. And that, again, great tool, very cheap to put together, very bodge, but it works. It gets you the information you need. I'm sure there's many other similar ways of doing this. And another note to take from this is the release form. So we are recording people. So we do get them to sign a form to say they understand what we're doing. We're not going to stick this all over YouTube and embarrass them, you know, just little things like that, just to give them that reassurance. And sometimes it helps to have two people, just because you want to give them your focus. So you don't want to be sat there writing notes whilst they're asking you questions and you don't know what they've asked. So being able to focus your attention on this person is very useful. And I can't remember, yeah, did include this slide. So some of the tips to help you get the most out of those sessions. If you obviously explain to them what they're doing, make sure they understand and they're comfortable. Make sure they know that you're not testing them. If they make a mistake, it's not something to be worried, embarrassed about them. It's not their fault, it's the fault of our software. If they've got something wrong, it's because we haven't designed it well enough for them to get it right. You know, there's no such thing as user error in this sense, it's just bad design. Have a little chat to them at the beginning. It helps them feel comfortable, relaxed. You know, they are being recorded. They tend to start a little tense, a little edgy. You know, if you just casual, unrelated chat, it kind of makes them forget about the cameras and open up to you a little bit more and feel more comfortable just speaking in general. Encourage them to ask questions, but don't give them the answers. That's very important because you're not there to teach them how to use the software. You're there to understand where they're getting stuck. So if they ask you how to do something, don't tell them. Come back with something like, well, how would you expect to do that? What would you expect this button to do, you know? What do you think is going to happen when you click on this? Or even, if I wasn't here, how would you work this out? You know, and that, again, it puts them back into that mindset of doing it themselves, you know, they're not there to be trained. Make sure, if you know about bugs in the system, make sure you tell them, because they're probably going to stumble across them, and when they do, they might get confused, they might get flustered. If you know about it, just let them know, and at least they're prepared. When they come up to that situation, they're prepared for it perhaps not to behave as they would expect. And prioritise what you want to get out of them. So these people, as I say, once you get them opening up to you, some of them can chat for hours, some of them can go off on tangents to do all sorts of strange things in the software. So if there's a particular area of the software you're interested in, a newly developed bit, try and kind of focus them in on that a little bit and prioritise the kind of questions you ask them to make sure you get the most useful bits out of them first. And again, some of these sessions, we tend to advise people that it could take up to 2 hours. Some people end up in and out in like 20 minutes. Some people after 2 hours haven't completed one of the 5 tests we give them. You know, it completely varies on the people. So you have to be a bit flexible on that. And seem genuinely interested in what they say. Because there's nothing worse than if you ask someone a question and they answer it and you're just not interested, you're doing other stuff. They're just not going to answer the next time you ask a question. They're not going to give you the full explanation. They're going to trim it down because you don't seem to care. So it is important that you do actually care about what they're saying. And again, sort of body language, you can tell when people are holding things back. So, you know, if you ask them a question and they're sort of like, well, yeah, I suppose, you know, get out of them. There's something in their head that they're saying that they're not saying out loud. So just try and encourage them to speak up. So, errors. Why do people make mistakes? Why do people make errors in what they're doing? Now this is not specifically UX, but I find it's a useful thing to know a little bit about because it helps you understand the type of solutions that you're going to be giving people. So errors can kind of be categorized in a few ways. You get slips, and this is not my wording, this is someone smarter than me has come up with this categorization. So you get slips when someone intends to do one thing and does something else. I make myself a cup of coffee in the morning, I put my coffee in the fridge instead of the milk. It's a slip up, I didn't mean to do that, I know my coffee doesn't belong in the fridge. It's just one of them things, and they're quite hard to prevent, you know. Everyone slips up every now and then. You get memory-based slips, you know, I made some food, I forgot to turn the oven off. We can do something about that, you know, you can provide reminders, you can provide visual kind of clues, indications, oh, you haven't saved this and you're moving away from the page, do you want to save? Little things to help them out there. And then you get full-blown mistakes where people have either established the wrong goal or just have a complete wrong idea of what they're supposed to be doing, but they believe it's right. So they've misinterpreted the situation, or they've interpreted it right and they've taken the wrong goal from it, they've taken the wrong action. And these are things that you can control a little bit better. So this is where, you know, a good flow through the software helps, making sure it's clear what steps people need to take, making sure there's adequate kind of training available or indications as to what they should be doing so they understand what they're doing. I mean, if they've correctly assessed the situation but taken the wrong action, then again, you can give them indications of where they should be going in the software. You know, there's things you can do to help these. So if you have a rough idea of the type of mistakes people make and the type of errors, it gives you a bit of guidance as to the sort of things you can put in the software to help prevent them in the future. Which I may have covered this slide a little early. So again, if you know where people are going wrong, you can guide them in the right direction. And following standards, conventions, making things consistent, all of this helps. You know, if things behave in one way everywhere else in the application, then of course people are going to expect it to behave that way in this other section, you know. And consistent design makes it a lot easier for people to learn. And back to that previous mental model thing, it gives them a much better chance of their mental model of how this works matching how it actually works. Which means, yeah, expectations are met and they don't get confused and frustrated. And avoiding complicated techie language. Again, being in a software company, it's very easy for people to kind of forget that not everyone sits in front of a computer every day, you know. There's certain language that just isn't always needed. You know, if you can make it simple, intuitive to anyone who picks it up, you've got a much better chance of people getting it right. So, even knowing all of that, we still make mistakes. Things still slip through the net. So, you know, no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you research, things slip through. So, in the top left, there's a few, or I think that whole top row, these are different dialogues that we created in our software. You'll notice sometimes the cancel button's red, sometimes it's white, sometimes it has a cross, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes the action buttons are blue or green, you know. That's not consistent design. That's not going to help anyone who's trying to use this intuitively make their way through the software. And again, we've got some validation lower down, where it's validating on the same things, but it looks different, it behaves different. So these are just little slip-ups. And I believe, in my opinion, I think the reason that we made these mistakes is because when we were designing each of these areas, we got a little too caught up in that page, in that individual thing we're looking at, and we thought, okay, well, this looks really nice like that. It behaves in isolation really well. But when you look at the bigger picture, the whole software, and the flow all the way through, we missed things. We didn't make it consistent, which then meant we had to go back and iterate and change and tweak and get it right. And that's okay in an agile world, you know. Slips happen. As long as you make sure you go back and correct them, and you keep iterating, and you don't just accept it as it is, then that's okay, you know. we corrected those, and as far as I'm aware, there are no more of those consistencies in that particular bit of software anymore. He's chuckling because he knows that we've stopped developing that bit of software now. But we did correct them. So you've done all your research, you've done your designs, you've done your iteration, you've passed it over to the engineers, and they've developed it out in the wild. It doesn't stop there. Even once it's released, you're still getting feedback, you're still finding out what the customers think. You're getting analytics on how they use it, which features they're just not touching, and why. Why did no one pick up this feature? And you've got performance. You know, we may have designed this thing beautifully that flows perfectly. It takes 10 minutes for the page to load. It's never really going to work. And you have the opportunity to do sort of A/B testing, things like that. You know, provide different solutions to different people, see which one works the best, get feedback, come back, iterate, change, release the best thing. So even when the release has gone out, your work doesn't end. You know, even though these new features are coming in and you're researching and you're designing and you're doing all that, you still need to be keeping an eye on the things you've released and seeing where they can be improved. You know, the job's never done. Things can always be improved. So, tools, very similar to Russell's slide, almost identical. A couple of, well, the main one I'll point out is BB Flashback. That is the tool we use to record the screen and record their face and the sound. It's a great tool. It is licensed. It's not free, as far as I'm aware, but it's very effective and very easy to use. And again, various means of capturing all the notes you've taken. So again, I forgot to add teamwork onto this, but I should have done. So we've started using a product called Teamwork to store all the notes, all the research, all the designs, everything before that final piece that we give to engineers. So that if people come back in 6 months' time and they say, well, why did you develop it like that? I can look back at my notes and my research and say, well, this is why, you know, we did research and people really wanted this, and this is what worked, and we tested it, and this is what happened. So that's probably the biggest new tool that I've added that I completely didn't add to my slide that I should have. So yeah, other than that, it's just a lot of communication tools mainly. Whether that's internally, speaking to different departments, engineers, whether that's remote WebEx sessions with customers to watch their screen whilst they do certain tasks and explain, you know, where they got stuck or what's troubling them. So yeah, various communication methods. Another one I probably should have added into this is things like HTML. So my colleague who does the graphic design, he's very good in HTML, so a lot of the designs I give him, rather than faffing around in Photoshop and things like that, he mocks them straight up in, you know, in HTML, and they kind of work, and we can do interactions and we can kind of see the flow a little bit more. So again, that's a great skill that as a user experience person is probably great to have, that I one day hope to build up to the same level as him. But that's the joy of working in a team. So that's an area he's particularly good at. He's not so comfortable going out and speaking to people in the streets. So, you know, we share the load. And I guess in my bullet points, some of these things aren't tools. Some of these things are just skills. Empathy. Empathy, if you do any research online about user experience, empathy is the word that comes up all over the place. So it's not just about understanding what people are doing, it's understanding their whole mindset. It's really putting yourself in their shoes and really understanding the frustrations, the pain points, you know, and what they're trying to achieve at the end of it. So that is probably a skill that you just couldn't live without in a UX world. So I think I've covered most of that slide.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yep.
In terms of tools, we're doing a UX module as well, and for some prototyping we use stuff like POP and Xura. Just wondering if that was anything, like, did you all in particular stock in that, or do you think it's maybe just to do completely different stuff?
Everyone's going to have their own preferences. A lot of these tools, it's just down to how well you get on with them. Xura is one that comes up at a lot of conferences I go to and a lot of talks. I haven't had the opportunity to try it yet, but I would imagine that as it comes up so often, it's probably pretty good. So yeah, there are other tools out there. Balsamic Mockups is another one. It's good for basic sort of wireframes, but I find it's also good because you can make interactive PDFs, for example. So you can take a lot of still images and you can give the illusion that when I click on this button here, something happens, and all it's doing is taking you down to a different mock-up, which already has that pop-up, you know, or whatever it is. But that's also another quite good tool. So it's probably a bit of experimenting and just finding out what works for you and what you don't end up having to invest too much time into. There are a lot of very fancy, complicated tools out there that have all kinds of great features that it's going to take you like 2 years to learn and 2 weeks to do something that you could have done in 10 minutes in Paint.
Sure.
You know? So it's balance of the time invested and what you're getting out of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Any other questions before I move on?
See, when you're looking for user feedback or doing your research, do you try and make appointments for all these people, or do you just kind of try and hijack them? Or maybe hijack them.
I generally try and just hijack them. I found, I mean, again, it probably depends on the industry you're targeting. With retail, which is where I spend most of my time, if you try and book appointments, it's kind of just an opportunity for people to come up with excuses not to speak to you. Whereas if you're just there, you know, as far as they're concerned, when you first walk in, you're a customer. They need to come and speak to you, you know. And as long as you're conscious of not interrupting their work, because they are at work, they have things they need to be doing, you know. They can't just stand and chat to you for 3 hours because they have things to get done. So as long as you're conscious of that, and you're polite and you're friendly and you perhaps stop if a customer comes, you know, things like that, then I find just going in there works pretty well. Again, I'm sure everyone will have their own experiences in this, but...
So just to add to that, I did a bit of market research myself a while ago. I use LinkedIn, so just did a search for the type of person that I wanted to talk to, which in that case was business intelligence managers or something like that. And LinkedIn gave me a whole load, and if it didn't give me the contact details, I just called the company that they work for, asked to speak to them by name. When they picked up the phone, I'd tell them what I wanted, that I just wanted 10 minutes of their time. And like Christine said earlier on, they love to talk. They absolutely love to talk. So any research that you need to do, just talk to people. People are waiting to talk to you.
Although, one thing I would add to that, we tried, so again, I mentioned, obviously, I'm based here in the UK. A lot of our target market is America. I can't get out there and speak to that. I did try sending some of the people we had from our office in America out there. They tended to be mostly salespeople. For some strange reason, salespeople just couldn't quite get the same level of responses. And I think, and I don't know for definite, but I suspect they maybe couldn't help but go into a little bit of sales spiel, you know. No one wants to be sold to. As soon as people clock on that you're trying to sell them something, they're probably not going to talk to you anymore. So I would avoid that route of things a little bit if possible. You know, make sure they know you're just there for information. It's just research, you know. You don't care if they buy the product or not at the end of this. You're not the salesperson.
I mean, the beauty of it is you don't have anything to sell at that point. That's why you're there, to build something to sell.
Any more questions? I don't think I've got many slides left, to be honest. Further reading, so again, I'm sure a lot of you who are interested in user experience are probably well aware of a lot of these books and sites anyway. Those who maybe didn't know they were into user experience but have now discovered it, here are a few sort of further reading options for you. And yeah, online there are some great resources. And I am a particular fan of Don Norman and Steve Crumb's books. I think they're both very well written and have a lot of useful information in them. But there's many out there. I've just listed my favourites. There's probably hundreds of books and websites. And this is the slide I have no idea about, but I pass back to Russell.
I think everybody's already got a handle on this, but just in case anyone was a bit unsure about what to do next, it's this stuff. Identify what market you're targeting, identify the competition, and by that, I don't know if anybody's spoken to you at any length about that, but it's not just what features your competitors are offering, but it's about the company and the people as well, and the revenue, and their strategic direction, and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's not just about the product. The problem you're solving, the solution that you're proposing, and whether it's a go or a no-go, and why. Does anybody have any questions on?
What do you mean by the company and the people and the terms of competition?
So you are, if it's a go, if you think that there is an opportunity there that isn't being filled, but there are competitors that may be filling part of that opportunity or whatever, then it's, I did have a slide which went through all this, it's gone. But it's about who's leading the company, what's their background, you know, your competitors, what's their background, what are they interested in, are they preoccupied with a particular section of the market, what investments do they have, you know, how likely is it that they are going to go under next year, how likely is it that they're going to get a huge amount of investment next year and expand into your area or whatever. It's about more than just what the product is today, it's looking ahead at, you know, any hires that they're making. Look on their website for new hires, you know, suggests some kind of investment. So think of the bigger picture more than just the product.
Due diligence.
Sorry?
Yes, due diligence.
Exactly, absolutely, yeah.
Looks like you know all this stuff already.
I've done this for 10 years. You guys know that this latest we've got lost. Are there any issues with the project that people want to know about?
Do we know who the panel will be?
No, Ben, it shouldn't concern you.
Good question, Dan. Nice try.
Do we know their roles rather than their...
Oh, they come from all sorts of roles, project managers, CEOs.
I don't know who the panel is this year, actually.
It's who David gets under on.
I think Steph might be something.
Who?
Steph.
She?
I don't know, David Armstrong is these.
I have no
Is
idea
she
who's
Scrum Master or?
Yeah, Scrum Master.
So you've got at least one Scrum Master attending possibly.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that helps you at all, but...
So they're looking for process. They're looking for process, they're looking to see whether you've got the idea and whether what you say has got grounding. One of the big questions that always comes up, where did you get that figure? Yeah. And you need to be able to back up what you say.
So will the panel who are judging the presentations, will they have a copy of the report as well?
No.
No, okay, so it's just the presentation.
I'm the only one who sees the report, sadly.
Okay.
They don't have time.
Sure.
But that report would normally go to the CEO and be scrutinized and looked at, because they need to know that what you are doing is going to work or not. Yeah.
It's exciting. I envy you all.
Nothing exciting, there's a buzz on the day. It's quite fast. So please be here for the whole morning, because it's important for you to pick up things for your own learning. Yeah.
appointments that taken out for?
I'll put out the timetable. Normally starts dead on 9:30
Okay.
because we only have 16, so it depends how quickly I can get through to 1 o'clock. What happens is it's literally groups have to be ready to come down. All your presentations should be on the desktop before we start, otherwise all hell breaks loose. So if people have that first half hour to get their stuff ready, we will have a comfort break mid-morning, and then the judges and I go off and talk about what they've seen, and I sort of take notes furiously because it helps me mark later, and then they come up with the winner. And then we come back and announce that. And yep, it's a great end to a really good module, I think. And I will be asking you to fill out feedback forms on that day as well.
I've asked them to fill in feedback forms for today as well.
Have
Yeah, you leave, well, not forms, they're just people blank paper. What could be improved, what worked, and so on. And one piece of advice for the presentations, be succinct.
Yeah.
Learn from these presentations what not to do. Don't waffle. Be succinct. How long are they going to fight?
These elections, you are doing pictures. They've got a message from me. They don't give them the numbers. Both of us were wrong and then we shut up later. Okay. Next week, if anyone wants to come and talk to me, could they email me by the end of tomorrow? Then I will actually keep Thursday morning free. Okay, because I'm happy to talk to groups if you want that. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it's up to you. But I'll put an email round. But there is no session planned for next week. It's there for you to get everything together to make sure that you've got everything you need. So if you want to come and talk to me, that is when I can be free. Yeah? Any other questions? Can I just say thank you to Russell and Christina for, I'm sure what would have been an amazing session. I might even watch the video afterwards. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, Charlie Pollard. Yeah, you're gonna give our room to live it's like starting. It's already started around an hour. I wonder how many people there are. I wonder how many people there are. That's where it all about is. So like every class. Yeah. I can do it, you know, and these are unbelievable.
Anyone that's going to work these down, I will be forever a reader.
So we didn't start.
You want? How did you get in there today? How late were you?
I'm always in man. I don't have a home. I spend more time at home. Tell me, I have a